I know, it's extraordinary and amazing that that amount of time has passed. And it's clearly, you'll have its critics, and some people will think it's held, and and some people think it's won't. But I think it has fundamentally shifted the dial of what living in Northern Ireland means for a whole generation of young people. And it's extraordinary to think it's 20 years, and it's great to hear all the protagonists there really sort of recounting it. It's fascinating.
Shifting the dial on living in Syria, of course, was, some people would say, our lack of intervention by the British Parliament when the Americans came to us to say, come with us on this. You wrote about that, didn't you, in the paper this week? Not at all impressed by that decision by the British government.
No, I mean, I feel desperately for David Cameron, for George Osborne and everyone involved in it. I think at the time I said I thought it would be perhaps the most profound foreign policy mistake we've made in the last decade, but I think it's probably going to be longer than that. So I think clearly, look, everybody understands the hangover from Iraq and the mistakes were made, but we kind of, we learn from that. We change, we establish a National Security Council, we make sure we never repeat their mistakes again, but it certainly doesn't mean we become a little Britain that just retreats and has this sort of insular view of itself. Our friends and our allies expect us to play a role. It's certainly concerning that France and the US, they're very strong on this, and we haven't really said we're going to stand shoulder to shoulder with them yet. I hope that's going to come out. This is, sometimes you have to stand up for what you believe in and what you think is right, and this is a clear moment for that. William Hague has said again today in the Telegraph, this is our moment. Sometimes you have to step up to the plate, and no one's calling for a full-scale military invasion. War doesn't work like that anymore. But we cannot stand by and let this sort of thing happen.
Who do you blame for our previous lack of intervention?
Well, I think we're all to blame in a way. I mean, certainly coming from the services, you sort of look on in amusement at some of the debates that go on and the detail that goes on. But if you look at the fundamental principle of Parliament having a say on foreign security issues, those decisions are made in full picture of all the intelligence that is never going to be revealed to Parliament, that is never going to be revealed to the public because you'll burn your sources and the way you go about intelligence collecting. Ultimately, it's for the Prime Minister to make that decision. Now, I understand why David Cameron did that in 2013. The hangover from Iraq has been long and very, very painful, and some serious mistakes there. But now we've got to move on. We've got to, get with the pace. Warfare is changing. Foreign policy is changing. We need to get with the pace, keep up, because otherwise we'll get left behind. And I'm not, like many of my colleagues, prepared to settle for a Britain that just settles into irrelevance. That's not who we are. It's not who we have been in the past. And, this is one of those issues that we need to step up to the plate on.
The Prime Minister was not supported, David Cameron not supported by the Labour Party, which is the opposition, which is why that motion failed. How easily would you sleep in your bed if you were Ed Miliband?
Look, I have some private views on that, but I'm not going to make them public. I think it's pretty clear, I think, to everybody how that situation has materialised. What assertions he may give him before the recall of Parliament. I think where we are is a very sad place, and those are questions for him to answer.
Yeah. But you weren't that impressed.
Well, of course not. The situation where we are now is horrific in Syria. It was horrific then as well. There were no easy options, but back then there was an opportunity. And in this country, we are very quick to become pious over Iraq and talk about how difficult foreign intervention is and how there are no clean outcomes, and so we shouldn't get involved. And it's just not the reality of warfare. If we are going to play a role on the world stage that many of us think we should, we need to understand how it's changed, advocate for the British people as to how it's changed, and show that we actually stand up for something on this. I suspect the US and the French are going to do that, and I'll be sorely disappointed if we don't stand shoulder to shoulder with them, and that they're aware of that at the moment.
Well, the situation could have been very different in Syria if we had intervened previously.
Well, I think it would have been different. It's hard to sort of look back through, with rose-tinted glasses and think things would have changed. I mean, clearly the situation has got a lot worse. That intervention, I think, was the biggest foreign policy mistake we've seen. I think even bigger than Iraq, which, we look back on now and look at the catalogue of errors that were made then. But, Tony Blair and people going through that process then, they were making deliberate decisions that they thought were in the best interest of what was going on. I think what happened with that vote in Syria is you had individuals who, some of them were entirely legitimate MPs who'd been asked to vote for Iraq and felt burned by that, and Libya and felt burned by that. And I entirely understand those, but I'm afraid there was a whole swathe of particularly Labour politicians who took the moment to sort of stand on the plinth and shoot down the government. And I think when you do that and you put the your own personal interest before the national interest, you're going to end up in a pretty bad place. And certainly that's what's happened over Syria.
But democracy means that on this occasion, diplomacy was viewed to be the best way forward. What about now?
Well, actually, that vote fell because Assad said he was going to get rid of his chemical weapons. The Russians said they were going to supervise him, and the Labour Party fell for it. I mean, I do hope at some point everyone stopped believing, the Russian lies and the Syrian lies that come out every single day. I think the naivety of relying on that is extraordinary, but there we go. People did, and the vote didn't go through in 2013. We're clearly faced with a similar issue now. And the thing is with these people, Assad and Putin, that they only respond to strength. And we don't, nobody wants to wade into a full-blown conflict. Nobody wants to see Iraq Mark II or any of that mess. But also, we don't just retreat and let them carry on. We talk in this country all the time, all you need for evil to flourish is for good men to stand by and do nothing. And then we end up doing nothing. I'm afraid for many people, that's not good enough. We have a role to play. Our friends and allies expect us to play that role. And I look forward to Britain stepping up to the plate in the next sort of 24, 48 hours.
Did you prefer being a soldier or a politician?
That's a very unfair question, isn't it? I think there were, being a politician is an enormous privilege. There are aspects of military life that I desperately miss, of course. But that's life.
When you say it's unfair, you mean you've never been asked it before?
I have been asked it before. I think that it's been politics. I never had any preconceptions of it because I never expected to be an MP. So I can't really complain if I'm surprised by some of it. It presents immense challenges, but it is enormously difficult at times to understand the way the system works. But ultimately, if you're not prepared to sort of get your hands dirty, you shouldn't have gone into it in the first place. So I love the opportunities it represents. It's a real privilege voted for by people to do their bidding as they have done in Plymouth. But of course, it's laced with frustrations. And the military is a very privileged place to be. You're surrounded by often young, motivated men and women who want to be there, who abide by a set of values that you stand up for and sign up to. Politics is most definitely not like that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, would love to talk to you for hours, but I know you've got to go. Come back and talk to us soon. Thanks very much indeed, as always.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.